story from The Hill. We've talked about it quite a bit, but I do want to bring it up in another context because we're talking right now about what life was like in the Trump era. We're talking, 2017 into the beginning of 2021. And right now we keep seeing these stories pop up. This one's from a month ago, of course, that Trump is getting a big boost with younger voters. We're now seeing another story that Gen Z groups are panicking and trying to buy up domains that support Trump to trick Trump supporting young people into not supporting him. That's how panicked the Democrats are. And I saw this video today of a micro apartment in New York City. It's, 60, 70 square feet. It has no bathroom. It has no kitchen. It has a sink. And it is a 5.5 foot by 10 foot corridor with a door. And I think young people are starting to understand it. When New York City offers up free housing for illegal immigrants, free healthcare for illegal immigrants, and you, a young person entering the workforce, entering adulthood, can't afford an apartment and can't afford healthcare, you start to wonder what it is the Democrats are doing and why they are doing it to you. And when Donald Trump was president, things were a whole lot better. The economy was booming. Jim Cramer, for all of his failed predictions, said the best numbers of our lives pertaining to unemployment, economic growth, etc. Now under Joe Biden, it's been misery. Young people are excited about living in pods. They've got these in San Francisco. You can live in this big room with 3x3 pods, and you can climb into your designated tube, which is, each pod is 4 feet, square, like
fits like a twin size bed, basically.
Not even. Are you serious? Have you seen these tubes?
I mean, approximately. It's not fully.
They cannot fit a twin size bed.
You don't think so?
These pods where you go into a big room and it's 4 feet tall, 4 feet wide, and 10 feet deep. You can lay down on an air mattress in that thing if you're lucky. That's how small they are. And they're advertising, these are the Cubbies you can live in. You can live in. This is what young people have to look forward to. So it's not surprising to me that many of them joke all day and night on social media. They have memes about killing themselves because they're like, haha, what's the point of living? I think one of the big reasons many of us are trying to vote for Trump is because they can see the writing on the wall. They understand Biden is bad. He will make life hard for you. Trump is an open door with light at the end of the tunnel.
It's the migrancy crisis, man. And this idea that sometimes your leader needs to be cruel, perceivably cruel to those out there so that you in here can prosper. And sorry, at some point, they're always going to make more people. So there's always going to be more of them out there. And I need to protect my society. I've for ages thought differently, that we could protect everybody. But the reality is that's why we build walls.
These young voters are inside this big mansion that is the United States. They don't have a bedroom. They're not getting any food. And they're asking, why is it that we are here giving our money and working in this place? And what are the Democrats doing? Opening the door and letting strange people come in and eat all the food. Young people can see that.
And take the jobs that young people need. I think it's about economic opportunity. What's the point of going to college, racking up a debt to do so, and then when you get out of college, there are no jobs available?
Mm-hmm. But your student loans, you can't go bankrupt on your student loans, and they're issuing them forever and ever and ever. I mean, I think economic opportunity is ultimately going to change young voters from left-leaning. Everyone says that when you're young, you're a Democrat, and when you're old, you're conservative. I was never a Democrat. And I think part of it is the life that people want to lead is not sustainable under Biden. I mean, even if you did want to live in a city and, live in the box and do whatever, you can't. And I think more and more young people are starting to see that and saying, actually, I want to own land. Actually, I don't want to be dependent on anyone else. Actually, the things that I think will sustain me long term line up with a different group of people than are traditionally pushed on me.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a big cultural shift. That's what I like about the youngest generation, which is they are this weird mix of super hopeless people, but then some of them are extremely motivated to be different. We'll see these waves of young people who are saying, I don't want these things. I want to live differently. And I have always credited it a lot to the emergence of homeschooling as a dominant force in America. I think that people being more invested in their education and challenging sort of status quo teaching has really ignited a powerful energy among these young voters who are coming down the pike. But to a certain extent, they have to be met with some positive reinforcement. And that's why a Trump presidency is so interesting right now, because if you could give them the chance to have economic prosperity, they would really cement the culture they're drifting towards.
I mean, also, let's just be honest. Trump is the more punk rock candidate that they have to choose from. And even if their attitude really was that they believe Trump is the apocalypse, but they're making memes all day and night about burning everything down and killing themselves, then they'd also be voting for Trump too. So it's just, there's nothing Joe Biden has to offer. Donald Trump is the guy who gives the middle finger to the press, mocks the system, and he's got that youthful exuberance. So in terms of wanting to just screw the system over, it's Trump. Mm-hmm. Trump's the anti-establishment.
It's also I know his friends, a lot of his friends and family, and like people, they seem genuinely interested in technology. I haven't been pinged by the Biden industry to be like, yo, what's the solution here? The solution is graphene and hydrogen. We can alter our fuel system so that we're using hydrogen fuel in addition to oil, carbon-based fuel.
I'm not having this, Ian.
Increase our GDP by 10 times.
I'm not having this, okay? You're supposed to be promoting graphene. Now you're switching to hydrogen fuel.
It's a part and parcel package. Have you heard of graphene before?
Yes.
Yeah, this shit's, dude. Fuck, this is going to be the 21st century building material. We're going to be pumping this shit out of Rice University. They figured out how to hit carbon trash with a laser, or it's actually with electricity. They'll take any carbon, they'll run a 7,000 degree current through it, turn it into black powder.
He desperately wants you to tell Trump to embrace graphene. That's why he's saying this.
It's a solution. It's a materials solution. And it'll alleviate like the sector of the copper industry that we rely on, and the
let's bring this into practical terms.
The steel industry.
What do you are you working directly with the Trump campaign?
Not in a formal capacity, but I'm certainly helping Donald Trump. I think he's the peace and prosperity candidate.
I agree.
I mean, those are your two crucial issues beyond immigration. We are loping closer and closer to a world war. Both in the Russia-Ukraine situation and in the Middle East. Donald Trump could solve both of those issues relatively quickly.
But in domestically, we've got the immigration problem, and we're wasting money in Ukraine, which affects us domestically. But what do you see Trump doing in terms of manufacturing and in terms of lower skilled labor for American citizens?
First of all, drill, baby, drill. We got to go back to the fact that there's enough black gold, there's enough coal, there's enough natural gas under our own feet to fuel the country for 100 years. We're back to having to beg the Venezuelans or the Russians or others for fuel. This makes no sense at all. Every president in my lifetime has promised us energy independence, and none of them delivered. Donald Trump delivered. It is the keystone to a booming economy. It's the first thing he has to do, first thing he will do.
Yeah.
Can I ask, how do you think Trump is going to handle criticisms he has about COVID? When COVID first, hit us, we didn't know what was going on. There were the initial lockdowns. I think this is something that a lot of, never Trumpers or Democrats or even moderates have questions about. It seemed like at one time this was something that he was behind.
I'm going to jump in real quick here, because we had this conversation when Laura Loomer and Luke Rudkowski were on the show in Iowa. And so now you've got these just whinging sycophants on social media misrepresenting what I said. And so you have Laura Loomer blaming Ron DeSantis, saying he locked everything down, it was really bad. You have Luke Rudkowski saying Donald Trump locked everything down, it was really bad. And my point is, everyone in the beginning of this, everyone got it wrong. Republicans at the start of COVID were advocating wearing masks, and Fauci said not to. And then Fauci flip-flopped, and all of a sudden Republicans were saying, don't wear masks. Donald Trump said 15 days to slow the spread. Donald Trump pushed Operation Warp Speed. Personally, I look back and I'm like, yeah, and Ron DeSantis was also for mandates and lockdowns too. I don't see the point in having this Trump is bad, no, Ron is bad, no, Trump is bad, back and forth over and over again to try and adjudicate something that happened 4 years ago between two guys who did relatively similar things or in different ways. Trump wasn't a governor. He didn't have control over the states. Ron DeSantis believed a lot of the same garbage everyone else did. And what people did was they took this clip to try to imply that I'm somehow saying Fauci should not go to prison. I think Fauci is directly responsible and he should go to jail. I think he should be criminally charged and investigated, of course. But it's silly, in my opinion, to attack Donald Trump or Ron DeSantis when we look back 4 years later, we're like, oh, now that we understand the origins and now we have the evidence and now we realize who was right and who was wrong and who's responsible. It's like, oh, well, now we go back and argue that Trump should have done something different. Well, she should have. But what did anybody know at the time?
Do you think this is kind of how the Trump campaign is responding to these
I must tell
comments?
you, I study polls as part of what I do, and even though we all feel strongly about it, when you stack it up next to immigration and war and the economy, it's not moving that many voters. I mean, Trump, he relied on the doctors. He's not a doctor.
Yeah.
He relied on the doctors.
That's how I felt about this argument for a long time that, I mean, we still get it from the Democrats that abortion is going to be the big issue of 2024. And it just doesn't seem to be, especially at least in the primary season, among conservative voters. Maybe in a general, when you have to face up against maybe moderates, it'll be different. But there are so many things that they bring forward saying, well, this is a potential weakness. You know, this is a dent in the chainmail kind of thing. And it seems like no one can actually find the thing that is irritating voters in a way that would impede the Trump campaign.
I think the COVID talking points of Trump are a cope for people who just don't like Trump and are looking for a reason to justify why they wouldn't vote for him.
I'm concerned about his staffing issues with, the dude with the big mustache that got us in.
John Bolton.
Yeah, John Bolton wanted to take over Iran.
Yeah, and he fought, Bolton is just out.
Some of these horrendous staffing decisions that Don made, and then the Fauci thing, he didn't give him authority, but he basically stood behind him and nodded while Fauci ran the show. He would do that with some other technocrat in the future, like the CEO of Google. He's like, I'm not a social media guy, so I'm going to let the social media guy run. Like, the doctors should be relying on the president to make the right decision after their advice is given, not the other way around.
Well, that's quite literally what happened.
It was the other way around. Trump was relying on Fauci to make the right call, and basically was like, whatever you say is going to be a yes, so good luck, go for it.
Well, we don't know that's absolute.
That's what it looked like.
We know that he had Birx and Fauci up on stage, and it was, with them all the time, and it was a mistake in hindsight. And there are people who are like, I always knew exactly what was going to happen. BS, dude. So many of these right-wing pundits were screaming, buy masks now. I had people mailing me masks early on at the start of this thing. When it was March and Donald Trump said 15 days to slow the spread. And we understand these things were screw-ups. I just think when you look at how good things were, especially considering the weights they stripped on his ankles, what I hear from, some of these individuals who are like, I won't vote for Trump because of what he did on COVID. I'm like, no new wars. Spare me your libertarian whinging when you're like, my justification for why I won't vote for Trump is some arbitrary thing about mistakes that were made, even though he's the first president in our lifetimes to not start a war and to actually set a timeline to bring our troops back and to negotiate with these countries like North Korea and to try and get our troops out of Syria. Setting a deadline for Afghanistan was fantastic. The Abraham Accords, all of these things were tremendous achievements. And then you're like, but because he wasn't, because he made bad decisions at a time when, nobody knew exactly what was going on, I won't vote for him now. And I'm like, dude, if everything he did with COVID, it was a lot of mistakes were made. I totally get that. Fair point, fair criticism. But the idea that is justification for why you would not vote for him now with Biden here or potentially Michelle Obama, when they're going to massively expand foreign war, Ukraine now the largest recipient of U.S. foreign aid, and young people can't afford apartments, but they're smuggling humans in, giving them healthcare, giving them houses, and then I hear these people go, but Trump made a bad call on COVID. And I'm like, yeah, well, okay, dude. No one knew what was going on at the time. We can rag on it now, but there's such a tremendous gap in what Trump represents coming to this country if you vote for him now versus what the Democrats will do to this country if you don't. And that's what frustrates me. It's an excuse of people who will make an argument every single day. Trump was right about this. He was right about this. He was right about this. He was right about this. Okay, will you vote for him? Well, because of Dr. Fauci. No, get out of here, dude. That's a lie. That's Trump derangement syndrome. Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.